I've always heard if it works for everybody, it works for nobody, right? And if you're trying to get AI to work for every possible use case you have, you're fooling yourself.
This is Outside Sales Talk, the best podcast for outside salespeople. I'm your host, Steve Benson, and we're here to chat with the world's top sales experts so that you can get their best sales tactics to level up your game. Welcome back to Outside Sales Talk. Today I've got Tyler Carlson here with me, and we're going to talk about how to generate more leads with AI-powered email campaigns, something that a lot of us have been thinking about this last year or so, I'm sure. Wondering how this can help us. So, Tyler, welcome on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. A little background. Tyler is the co-founder of Resquared. Resquared is a platform that streamlines the prospecting process through powerful automation. He has a long history in tech startups and most recently led a pro tech startup to over seven figures in SaaS revenue. Tyler's uh, focus is the entire customer journey from getting in the door, closing the deal, and setting customers up for success. And by in full disclosure, and also because it's interesting to a lot of people listening, I'm sure Resquared is and Badger have a partnership because you can generate leads with them that then end up in Badger uh, to be routed and mapped, and there's a nice little workflow there. And so that is maybe we'll cover that a bit too.
Absolutely.
But I've got some questions just in general, Tyler, that I want to start out with. Just you know, covering lead gen and AI and email and just get your take on some of this stuff since you're an expert in the space.
Excited for it. Yeah, absolutely excited for it. I feel like we're the salt and pepper between our two platforms here.
I mean, yeah, you find the stuff, we help them. You find it, so they have the information. We find it out in the world. So it's very it's obviously one workflow and very connected. So it's pretty cool. So well, how how has the lead generation landscape changed in the past few years with the introduction of AI and these powerful email campaigns that you can run today? Pretend like I've been under a rock for the last 3 years or so.
Well, if you haven't heard of this thing called AI or the internet out there, let's just say things are changing quick. I think to answer your question, kind of an interesting story. I was reading a book called A Brief History of Nearly Everything, which is a really good read if you haven't heard of it before. But one thing that stood out to me was if you look back in the day here, not to go too far off the rail, but I think it'll make sense. A lot of the inventions in history came from priests. And a lot of it was because, in my opinion, they weren't having to work with their hands, right? They didn't have to like make a sword or build a house or whatever, so they were able to think. And so the way I see it, especially now until the robots take over the world, is that all artificial intelligence is doing and all technology does, in a lot of ways, it just helps us do less dumb shit, right? And allows us to be more like priests. And what I've noticed, being a deal maker myself, whether that's selling a seven figure deal to a big deal like Subway, or working with all kinds of folks in my career, I found that the more senior a salesperson is, the less of an appetite they have for dumb shit, right? In terms of and I know for myself and for our team, every salesperson, I would make the argument in the world, knows they should prospect more, right, and wishes they were prospecting more, but there's only so many hours of the day, right? And so I think across the board, what artificial intelligence is going to do is exactly what I said: help eliminate some of the manual processes, so the sales folks can do what they do best, which is figure out what the challenge they're having or what they're trying to solve for, or what opportunity or goal they have, and how they can do it, right? Whatever that service or goods is. So in my opinion, that's where AI is really at right now, is just really helping to streamline and make things easier. And I think from our perspective, the last point I'll make on that is, I believe the days of blasting are over, right? When you go to email somebody, you can tell if it was sent to 5 people or 5,000 people. And I think that AI can really make it so where every email is unique, but it's not like, oh, I mail merged a name in or whatever, right? It's like unique for the person that you're reaching out to. So then when they raise their hand, the salesperson can do what they were, meant to do, which is get in there and close the deal.
Makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, and you could argue that a lot of the changes that we've seen over my entire career with technology and sales and marketing have all been doing stuff that I used to do by hand,
Mhm.
making it automated. The computer does it for you, a piece of software does it for you, an app does it for you. I mean, obviously, in the beginning, before Badger was invented, when I was out in the field as a salesperson, 20 years ago, I was doing all the same stuff. It's just I was using a paper map, and then I started using MapQuest and Google Maps, and then I used to have a Rolodex, and then we got spreadsheets of it, and I've actually seen people have maps up on their wall with different colored pins all over it, like for the different types of customers, and they plan out what they're going to do and write it all out. And it's it you can do all this stuff by hand. I mean, I used to do email campaigns by hand, where I would like copy the email, put it into copy the body, copy their
Mhm.
name, paste. Like, it was like 3 or 4 pastes per email, and I would do 1,000 of them in a day. I mean, that was fun. I mean,
I'm sure you could find the control V pretty easy at this point, you know.
oh yeah, that's yeah. I'm sure I'll develop arthritis someday from my control C, control Ving all the time. But so, how can AI powered tools enhance the effectiveness of email campaigns for field salespeople when generating leads? Specifically, explain. Like, we throw away, I think we throw around terms like automation and AI, but what specifically, like, describe to me what an AI powered email campaign tool can do.
I think that our vision and what we're doing today and building into the future is that the salesperson's able to say, hey, look, here's who I'm trying to sell. Right, this is what I'm trying to sell in this area, and the AI will generate based off of a bunch of A/B testing that has been happening with other use cases. Here's an example sequence for you, right? How would you change this, etc. We launched not too long ago AI snippets, where essentially what it's going to do is it's going to look through their different reviews, whether that's Yelp or Google, etc., and put a custom sentence or two, right? So like the other day, I sent an email and it was like, thought it was so interesting that your insurance company was founded almost 100 years ago. And it was like, no salesperson is going to have time to, look at the website and scroll down to the about us and, maybe have to click a hyperlink to get into it. So I think in our vision, the idea is that historically, and I think, both of us coming from the tech world, we understand the idea of like that setter closer model, right? Where you're going to have, historically like an SDR that's going to do a lot of that, kind of grunt work, for lack of a better word, in terms of dialing for dollars and, doing the control C and control V. And in a lot of ways, I think and I want to talk more about that later. I think AI has essentially in a lot of ways replaced that setter, or is going to replace that setter, over time. And so I think for us, our vision is that the sales rep is able to come in, like I said, direct on who they're trying to sell, what they're trying to sell, get some custom messaging based off of a bunch of things that have worked, approve that, and then they go to bed at night and they get knocked on their shoulder when someone raises their hand, right? Hey, I'm interested in learning more, and I have a lot of opinions in terms of like those call to actions and how to be more effective with that, which we can talk about later. But in short, that is, I think, how AI is, if you want to get more detailed into the vision of the actual salesperson experience, is that they kind of direct the AI where to reach out to. They add their input into what the messaging should be, and then they get nudged when it's time to follow up with somebody.
Makes sense. I get it. What would you say some of the most common challenges are that salespeople face when they're trying to integrate these types of tools, these AI-powered email campaigns, into their lead generations, or into their lead generation efforts? What are the challenges? Where do people bump their heads? They're trying to use this type of software.
It's a good question. I think one point would be, if you're not tech savvy and you want to go from 0 to 100 to use I would recommend finding someone that is tech savvy to help you, right? Because I think it requires just a level of tech adaptability, right? To be able to understand what the limitations are. Not that you need to know how the random forest models and all this stuff in the background are working, but I think you might want to look yourself in the mirror and say, if I'm having trouble getting my Zoom call working, I'm probably not going to be able to 180 with the AI, and I should be able to look through someone that can, because I think that's just one, probably not the most politically correct thing to say, but I think it's true. So I think there's a challenge of folks that are trying to go from I can barely use a computer to I want to be an AI expert, and I think they need to kind of bite size it out, right? Because in my opinion, another mistake that I think folks are making with AI, to kind of stay big picture here, is that back to when I was saying, hey, if you look at an email and you know if it was sent to 50,000 people or 5 people or one person, right? I think that, the people are trying to use AI as a silver bullet where I can just create this one template that's going to magically use AI and it's going to magically hit up every possible prospect in the entire galaxy perfectly for me, and then they'll raise their hand. I think that that is a mistake. At the end of the day, what I'll share more on is our bread and butter is local and regional businesses, right? Which I think are really the backbone of communities and folks that are trying to sell local and regional businesses, right? Anything from internet to leases to accounting to lawyer, attorneys, etc. And so for what we always teach our clients is, hey, if you want to reach out to all restaurants, that's a mistake, right? Because the difference between a burger shack, and a fine dining restaurant are apples to oranges. And so I think that people need to really lean into AI in terms of helping, streamline some of the, nonsense that they might have done in the past with the copy and pasting, maybe historically, but still look at it in terms of relatively micro targets, right? Stick the AI on a micro target. Hey, I want pizza shops, right, in Florida. I want pizza shops in South Tampa, right? So I think that's another mistake is they're trying to, I've always heard if it works for everybody, it works for nobody, right? And if you're trying to get AI to work for every possible use case you have, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And a part of this is just back to sales basics, right? Like think about who is the best fit for this product or service that I'm selling, and you know seek out that particular group. We've actually had customers that sell cans of tomatoes, and the way they sell the cans of tomatoes are they go and have it what they call a tasting with the pizza place. You brought up that example that just triggered that
Well,
memory for me. Like and because they were like, we have better tomatoes than most people, and so when the chef a tasting means you open a can for the chef and they literally taste your tomatoes, and you say, hey, would you rather put this on your pizza? And a lot of times they're like, yeah, I want this on the pizza. So that's
wow.
always that. So they need to know where the Italian food places are, where the pizza places are. So they'd be a perfect fit for this. I should call them up.
Please do.
Well, that's one reason why, as soon as we kind of got this partnership off the ground, I wanted to have you on the podcast, just because, a lot of the people that listen to outside sales talk are obviously in outside sales. A lot of them are selling to these small businesses. So I'd say this is useful to almost anybody, but there are certain groups of certain large chunks of our customer base that this is super useful for.
Absolutely.
Um, so so personalization, I think, is a key thing that AI is helping us do. It's really important when you're reaching out to people for the first time that it's personalized and you're able to kind of map your value proposition to them. How much can AI do here? How much is AI able to take care of this personalization, and and how much should the rep expect to get hands-on with what the AI is doing to enhance or tighten up what the AI is doing when it builds those emails that it's going to send out.
Absolutely. No, I think the personalization is, in a lot of ways, and we actually interview local business owners to see through their eyes, right? So that's really the theme of our podcast is we interview local business owners to hear, what's a great salesperson doing and what's a not so great salesperson doing, right? And it's back to the sales basic stuff that you were talking about earlier of like, hey, if I tell you I'm on vacation and call me in a couple weeks, don't call me tomorrow. Like you're gonna lose all of my trust, and I'm not gonna want to buy anything you give me, right? And so I think that these business owners, right, and we can both appreciate this at any capacity, are wearing a lot of hats, right? And there's always spinning plates and there's always fires. And so the key to personalization is that, hey, Mr. Business Owner, right, is this good for you, right? And I want to talk more about that later in terms of what the call to action is, because, the little teaser on that is prospecting's a lot like dating, in my opinion, right? Which I'll talk more about in a little bit. But I think in terms of how AI can assist with personalization, I think that it's come a real long way in a short amount of time. I think that it comes back to our point we talked about earlier, where the guy selling tomatoes might want to target the AI on pizza shops differently than an Italian restaurant, right? Maybe it's a different message in each of them, right? So first you got to kind of niche down your target, in different buckets. And then two is the ability, like we were talking about a few minutes ago, of the AI to look at things like their Yelp, their websites, etc. It's almost like the new mail merge, right? Where you're able to just pull like their first name or their business name. We've all got those emails that are like hi first name bracket, right? Those are always fun. And let's just say you're probably not buying from them. So I think it really comes back to the ability to one target the AI in the first place, so it has a chance to be personalized, right? And one thing that we encourage, our customers to do is, again, back to the restaurant example. Restaurant in a subject line doesn't work as good as pizza, which doesn't work as good as Italian versus pizza, but works even better is saying South Tampa pizza shops. Right? There's only so many pizza shops in South Tampa. So all you need is to put that in the subject line, and that person's going to likely open it and read whatever you have to say. So I think where personalization is now is it's kind of a next level mail merge, but you can't fall into the trap that thinking you could just take one giant list and automatically make it perfect for everybody.
Yeah. So this is a tool that enhances what you're doing, but it still does take a little work. And as a lot of people here are familiar with the Badger map, it's like that, right? Like if you were spending an hour figuring out your routes for the next couple days, now you're still spending some time, but maybe you're spending 10 minutes figuring it out. But it's still you still need to get that human brain on this stuff. It's making it faster. It's bringing in some new skills that the human brain doesn't have, like the ability to look up 1,000 places and pluck out some interesting information about each one of them, like when they were founded or whatever. Um, but like, yeah, it's very. I think a lot of technologies like that. You still gotta have your hands at the keyboard. It's just it shrinks that busy work element of what you're up to.
Exactly. It's like a badass intern, but you're not going to just throw the intern on your closing call, right? Like you're going to have to get on that damn closing call yourself, right? And if you didn't take time to look up where the person's from or where they worked or whatever, the AI isn't going to inject that in your brain, right? But it's pretty sweet if they can give you a little, 3 sentence summary versus you having to comb through, to your point, thousands of websites or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned your podcast. What was the name of it?
It's called Selling Local,
Selling
and
local.
Selling Local, and we work with, or we speak. The idea is we interview a business owner, we hear their story, tips for salespeople, and they'll tell a story about a salesperson, usually doing a good and a bad job. And then we don't always get to accomplish it, but we try to get the salesperson on the call, and we do like a part two. And so we kind of put the two episodes together so you can hear both sides of the table. So we took a little bit of a hiatus over the summer with some travel, but I actually just scheduled 3 of them this morning. So yeah, if anybody wants to be on that podcast, I'd be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, this is a great group to ask, um at the very least it sounds like it's worth everybody's time to check out the episodes that are in there. And if you sell to dentists, look up the ones that are about dentists and hear a couple. It's fun to get that unfiltered the concept. I think is very cool.
I appreciate it.
um
Yeah, fun to hear their stories.
Absolutely. And is email still a preferred method of communication? And this is a funny question for me, because if I had $1 for every time someone in marketing has told me email is dead, I'm always like, it's not dead. I literally answer every email and in-mail that I don't answer them all, obviously, but I see each one that I get. Like email is still a major means of communication. But talk to me about the trends that in your area of this is your area of expertise, right? What would you say the trends are between like phone outreach to email to social media? How do you see those developing, and are they all equally important? Is one more important? What do you think? How does it all fit together?
Great question. Yeah, I think on like kind of the personal level in terms of like the day-to-day managing your own inbox, I think that's one thing that AI is going to make a world of difference for, right? Imagine how many times a day you go to look at your email and there's not anything in there, but you're anticipating what's coming. If you could just go to bed at night and know the AI is going to notify you when you actually need to get back to something, or when, it's just someone trying to spam you. So I don't think email is going anywhere, but I think everybody's going to have kind of AI assistants already around this, right? And if you look at, Gmail, right? If you log into Gmail personally, and it's already kind of doing that for you, right? You have your primary inbox, your promotions, your social, or whatever order they have those other two in. So I think that email is not going anywhere at all. And I think that also these local business owners, it's a single area for them to be able to manage, their day to day, versus having, a bunch of different mediums. With that said, I think that email is, kind of the what's the metaphor to look for? Like kind of the airplane gunfire, kind of like the you're kind of getting that first touch, right? But anybody knows in sales it takes way more than one touch, right? To get a deal done, even if you're knocking on a door, right? I think the same thing applies. So I think email is not going anywhere. I think the AI is going to just make it even harder to get into that inbox if you're sending bad emails, or if you're, spamming people. And back to the days of blasting are over. I think obviously social is huge. I think that it's interesting for us that less than 20% of business owners are on LinkedIn. So I think if you're trying to sell to corporate America, LinkedIn is a great channel. I personally use LinkedIn all the time for sales and just relationship building, etc. But Instagram and Facebook, we actually have direct integrations and access to that through our platform. And so we always recommend, you want to hit them with an email, you want to hit them with a Facebook message, because they're actually incentivized to get back to you. But I think at the end of the day, business happens on the phone and in person. There's nothing better than sitting in the room with somebody, and I think that is, the ultimate pinnacle. But, what we recommend, and I'll come back to the prospecting like dating metaphor later, but what we recommend is when someone raises their hand and you're offering to share more information, or give them something relevant, you pick up the phone and you're like, "Hey Steve, just about to send you something, wanted to make sure it got in your inbox, do you have a second?" Right? And then you can feel out like, "Leave me the hell alone, I'm in the middle of firefighting," or, "Sure, I'll look real quick." And boom, that's your chance to try to overcome objections. "Hey, while I got you, any questions on what I sent you? Like, what are you looking for?" And then you qualify them, all the way through. So to condense my answer, I think email is absolutely not going anywhere. I personally hate managing my own inbox, but I think AI is going to make that even easier, right? Where you're going to spend less time dealing with, deleting emails, and more talking to the people you need to talk to.
Makes sense. And how can people think about Resquared, the product you built, in terms of using it at different stages of their sales process? So it's obvious what it does with lead generation. I think, it discovers the person and you sends them an email, right? Like helps you find them and reach out to them. But where can it get involved in other parts of the sales process?
I think it really is, heavy on like getting. We like to describe ourselves as like the agent, and you're the actor. We'll get you an audition, and then it's on you to get the role, right? With that said, I think that everybody knows, right, that timing is something out of our control as a salesperson, right? And so a lot of times, you'll reach out to somebody and they do have the right fit, they do have the need, they do need your product or service, but the timing isn't good. And so, something that we really encourage our clients to do, and we actually launched a feature called Demand Reports, where it looks at the amount of Google searches based off of different categories. And I'll explain how that's relevant here is. I'm sure everybody on this podcast has heard of Gary V and Gary Vaynerchuk, but his book of the jab 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 right hook, right, of like you give, and then you ask for something. So I think outside of just immediately asking for an appointment, or for whatever, is what can you give these people that they might find relevant for your industry, right? For the tomato guy, being able to say, "Hey, did you know that our tomatoes have this and this, which makes this moisture level lower, which makes your crust not get." I don't know, I'm making that up on the fly, right? And so it's nurturing opportunities until they're ready. That's our bread and butter, right? Whether they're ready, which I'm always shocked at how good the conversion is on the first pass through, especially with, just a simple email, but also just that constant nourishment, right? And the nurturing of them. And that's again where I think the AI comes into place is once you kind of direct on who you're trying to sell to and what you might be able to provide, a white paper or whatever, you can have these sequences just continuing to happen for years, right? Until that opportunity raises their hand and they're ready to go, and you can kind of redirect it as you go. So it's not only the initial call, but it's also the nurturing until you do get that opportunity. And if the opportunity is not the right timing, just keep nurturing them, and that's where the follow up comes into play.
Makes sense. And talk to me, tell me about the landscape. So not just Resquared, but like where are there opportunities for salespeople to integrate tools like ChatGPT and other we hear about 50 different AI tools floating around that do different things. How I think we're getting an understanding for what Resquared does. How where are there opportunities that you see that are really attractive for the types of salespeople that you and I have as customers? Where else can they? What are the other tools they can use from an AI perspective?
So I got some tools in mind. One thing that I just am personally a huge fan of, which has nothing to do with AI, is just sending a letter. Like if you take the time to send a letter to somebody, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can count on maybe one and a half hands how many handwritten letters I've gotten in my whole life, right? So I think that's a secret weapon. Whereas as things keep getting further and further into this AI, robots taking over the world, go knock on a door, and make sure you have the right, you're not just driving in circles, with you guys, and also send a follow up letter, right? Blow their mind. And world's best subject line is "Hope you got my handwritten letter," right? Who's not going to open that? In terms of tools out there, there's quite a few. I think first would be the video. I think that whether it's something simple like a Loom or Vidyard, which all I think have free versions of those tools, where you're able to put a face behind it, right? And where AI is coming into play, I think it's called Send Spark or Spark Send or something like that. I just saw like 2 days ago. But basically, what you can do is you make like your intro. You make like your call to action, and then you can basically upload like a spreadsheet of different names and companies and stuff, and it'll use AI and your voice to make 100 custom videos off of like one. Now, I haven't used it yet. I bet it's still got a long way to go, and I bet I could probably tell, knowing enough about this stuff, that somebody used a tool like that. Kind of back to we're in that mail merge phrase. But I think if you're not doing any video type messaging and emails, and even text messaging people videos, I think you're missing out. So that's one. The other is I've been playing with Bard quite a bit, which is the Google's AI, and they're still, who knows what's going to play out with both of them, but they just launched where you have extensions where it'll actually look through your Gmail, your Google Calendar, right? Even YouTube, right? And so you could say, hey, I think this prospect sent me an email about this something a while back, like boom, and it takes that like search to the next level. I think that's huge. One tool that I like that just is actually doing like a beta AI component is called Hemingway app. So I don't claim to be much of a writer or book connoisseur, but I do love reading. And then from my understanding, Hemingway is known for very short, succinct, right? Writing, very easy to read. And this Hemingway app is really cool where you basically just copy and paste whatever messaging you're using, and it shows you what grade level you're at. And it's like you want to be at like a second grade level, not like a college grade level, right? And it helps you simplify it, right? Like I went to this conference a year or two ago, and I'm used to being like the younger guy at these conferences. Well, I was like the old guy at this conference, and they were like 18, 19, and they were all these like, influencer marketing, like affiliate marketing, all that kind of stuff, which I have my, opinions on. But they were telling me about how one guy had sold 2 or 3 yachts the year before, like $1 million yachts. Guess what the email was? Do you want to buy a yacht? Question mark. That was literally it, right? Like that was it. It wasn't like some crazy AI or whatever. So use the Hemingway app, right? Use a video tool, right? Send a damn letter, right? Those are, I think, some of the combinations, and use something like a Bard to make your life easier in terms of just doing less dumb stuff.
Yeah, I've got to check out Hemingway. I've heard of that app actually, but I haven't played with it. Um,
It's free too.
Yeah, which also always confuses me. I'm like, so what's the model here?
I don't get it either. They just launched an AI beta, so I have a feeling they're going to be like $5 a month and blah blah blah. But there's quite a few that do the general thing. But I just love Hemingway app. It's so simple. You copy and paste it, and it highlights like yellow if it's red or run on, red if it's a run on. Gets rid of too many adverbs. It's great.
Nice. Well, next section of the podcast today, sales in 60 seconds. Quick questions, quick answers.
Okay,
What's the most important thing to include in an email that you're sending to a new prospect?
a simple call to action that requires the least amount of friction, and that is not, do you want to meet next Tuesday? You got to first figure out if they're open, and then you crush them with the meeting.
What's a common mistake that you see salespeople make when dealing with prospects?
I think that applies again. They're going right in for the meeting. Prospecting's like dating. You don't ask somebody, do you want to go on a date first? First, you say, hi, how are you doing? Right? Are you single? Right? So figure out if they're single or not before you ask them on a date.
Makes sense. And what would you say, with AI kind of entering more and more into our daily communication as salespeople, how can salespeople stand out from the crowd?
Care, care about who they're selling, and actually care. Don't expect the AI to do all the work for them, and lean into some of the old school stuff. Go knock on the door, write a handwritten letter, call them.
What would you say the best piece of sales advice is that you've ever heard?
Ooh, best piece of sales advice I've ever heard. I love that question. The one that comes to mind is when you realize one thing, it makes sales a lot easier. All we do all day long is interrupt people. They do not, their world does not revolve around ours. So when they get upset or they're frustrated or whatever, it's probably not you. It's probably something going on in their life. Just like when my mom told me that little kid that bullies you in school or whatever, or the jerk in school, he's probably got something happening at his house that's having him act that way. So just remind yourself, all you're doing is interrupting people all day long and they don't owe you anything.
Well, I'm going to try to summarize a bit of what we've talked about today here. Um, First of all, AI can help sales reps be more efficient with their time. The days of email blasting are over because AI can help make every email you send customized and unique to the person you're sending it to. AI email tools can help salespeople automate a lot of their email process and can create custom messaging that can help an email stand out from the crowd. AI tools can also help with follow up reminders so that you don't drop the ball with a prospect. Keep in mind that AI tools should be used for micro targets so that you make sure each segment of your outreach gets the best messages that are tailored to them. Use AI to research your prospect and understand their business better in order to personalize your approach. Email can be a great first touch with your prospects, and then you can use other channels to build on that relationship. Use email AI tools to help nurture the relationship that you have with prospects until they're ready to buy. It's not necessarily just for the first touch, it can also be used to nurture. Tyler shared some other tools that can be helpful to further stand out with prospects, taking time to send a follow-up letter, handwritten letters. Try sending custom video messages through platforms like Loom and Vidyard. Um, the Hemingway app to send clear and concise messages to customers. This has been so much fantastic advice, and I do really appreciate it. Um, where can listeners read more about what you do and reach out to you if they're interested in learning more?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to continue to build on our partnership and our relationship as fellow girl dads here. And make sure to check us out, re the number two dot AI. So re2 dot AI. And feel free to find me on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/Tyler W. Carlson. And if you're looking to prospect for a certain type of business or whatever, I'd be happy to put together a template for you, share some contact information. We're here to serve, and we're here to get better every day, and excited to watch the magic happen between Resquared and Badger Maps.
Absolutely. I'm excited too. This is really cool, and it's really cool what you're doing. This has been a great episode of the Outside Sales Talk. If you work in field sales, you'll love Badger Maps. The number one route planner helps you sell 20% more and drive 20% less. You can get a free trial at badgermapping.com today. And if you can think of any other sales reps out there that can learn about that would benefit from learning about the stuff that Tyler's been talking about with email and AI, definitely share this episode with them. Thanks for coming on the show again, and take care until next time, everybody.